listener production.
The creators of this podcast would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which it is recorded. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people are the first storytellers of this land. We pay respect to their elders, past, present and emerging, as well as any Indigenous people who may be listening today.
Everyone relax. This is TOFOP. I'm Charlie Clausen.
Oh, Will Anderson. Hello and thank you for watching.
And if you are watching, potentially you're on our Patreon watching this, we've had issues with Will and shadows in some of these records when we do it in the middle of the day. Now Will is in the light and it is blinding. Blinded by the light. Wrapped up like a deuce.
Like a deuce. What's the next line?
Another runner in the night.
Next line?
Yeah.
Another runner in the night. That's what I am. All wrapped up like a deuce. Another runner in the night.
Deuce is a euphemism for poo, right? Like you're wrapped like a deuce.
I thought, is that what it means?
Yeah, to drop a deuce. More American vernacular than Australian. But
what does a deuce mean? Is it two? Number two, right?
Yeah.
That's where juice comes from, right?
French
like number two, it's a juice.
Uno, juice. Is that Italian? I think I went from French to Italian or Spanish.
It was European.
Yeah, that's an Adam Sandler comedy set in Europe. Yeah. I'm Rob Schneider with the most offensive,
that's right. Well, not offensive because no one knows who's meant to be offended by it.
Just everyone who isn't white gets offended by that.
Yeah, well, in a way, it's not offensive. It represents multiculturalism. You know, it's the journey that the accent went on that really actually makes it important. But you're right. Yes, generic European juice. I imagine that's where it comes from.
What's that song called? Was it Blinded by the Light?
Blinded by the Light.
Manfred Mann's Earth Band. Does that sound right?
Yeah, Manfred Mann. That sounds right.
Okay, let's bring this
I don't know if I ever realized that Manfred Mann's band were called the Earth Band. I always just thought they were called Manfred Mann.
Oh, you've actually heard of Manfred Mann. I've never heard of Manfred Mann before.
I've heard of Manfred Mann, but I was under the impression that Manfred Mann was not one man. Manfred Mann was actually men. It should be Manfred Mann. But are you suggesting that Manfred Mann is like Casey and the Sunshine Band? It's Manfred Mann and the Earth Band.
It doesn't appear to be Manfred, like Bruce Springsteen and E Street, the E Street Band. It appears to be, that's the one title, Manfred Mann's, like apostrophe S, possessive Earth Band. So he's Manfred Mann, but this is Manfred Mann's Earth Band.
But is the leader of Manfred Mann's Earth Band Manfred Mann, or is this just like Monty Python's Flying Circus? It's just an invented
like
character.
Baron Munchausen's. I don't know, actually. But let's just confirm that we got the lyrics wrong. Blinded by the light, revved up like a juice.
Revved up like a juice.
Yeah, not wrapped up like a juice. Another runner in the night. That sounds like it's got to be a car. So maybe a juice is also. Should I just type in juice?
Some sort of twin engine or like juice car. What does it mean? Juiced up? It's not juice though, is it? It's juice.
Slang or juice metaphor? What am I typing in? Metaphor? Juice?
I don't know. Juice car?
Meaning? All right, here we go. Juice meaning. Let's go.
Yeah, let's go with that.
All right, more definition. So, okay, it's a 2 on the dice or playing card, so to roll a deuce.
Oh, yeah.
It's also a $2 bill. Obviously, it's a score of 40 all in a game of tennis. Using it as a euphemism for devil and expressions of annoyance, as in "what the deuce." Of course, that's more like a Mr. Burns kind of thing. I think we need to go to what's that one that's Urban Dictionary? we've gone through the Oxford Dictionary. We want that boring shit. Give us the Urban Dictionary.
I hope that this is how modern day high school debaters start their debates, by the way. The Oxford Dictionary defines juice as, and then the Urban Dictionary defines juice as.
Okay, so dropping a juice. Spoken to denote going number twos or having a bowel movement. The example they use is hell red. I'd go, but need to run home and drop a juice real quick tonight. All right. What's going on in that conversation?
Tonight, all right.
What are Red and his mate up to that he wants to, but he's got to run home and drop a juice before they do it?
I mean, I appreciate the fact that he doesn't want to poo in public.
Yeah.
But if it's only a quick juice that he's got to drop, the fact that he has to go all the way home, that's actually. We should explore that more. That's more his issue than the issue of the juice.
Where are they? I had an incident like Red's friend on Monday, actually, which is a story I'm going to get to later in the show. But I was in the main street of town and had a sudden need to run home and drop a deuce. But I was like, well, there's that, or there's the public toilet at the top of town in a park.
Yeah.
And I went and did that and never again. Like you always roll the dice, don't you? You always roll the dice. And I'm not like you. I think I'm a bit more resilient to gross shit. Like I can, I've got a kid, I've had a dog, like I'm used to some gross situations. But whatever had happened in that cubicle before I got there, like they needed an old priest and a young priest to get things right because it was pure evil.
I honestly, like, it is one of those things that I am so fascinated by because of my aversion to, like, again, I don't even like particularly talking about this sort of stuff, but like I got very used to, like, I keep everything in the house pretty clean, you know, particularly
you're like a
I'm
cat.
here by myself. Yeah, I just like things to be clean.
Aloof
like
and clean. With the Will Anderson story.
Yeah, but when you get my affection, it feels worth
totally.
it. You know, it feels earned.
We'll get 13 years of a podcast out of this cat.
I don't mind things being jumbled, but I like them to be clean. And so I've got an old broken toilet. Like, and when I say broken, I mean that there might be people who, you know, they're thrill seekers in the fact that they, you know, jump out of a plane or they want to climb Mount Everest or they want to challenge themselves. But I like to microdose thrill in the same way as people might microdose magic mushrooms. I like to microdose thrill. And the way that I do that is I have a toilet, and I've had this toilet now for,
Is this the Sydney
been like
toilet?
this for,
it's always been
Sydney
broken.
toilet.
As long as I've known you, that toilet has never worked. Every time I visit your house, there's always a word of warning or some advice or some weird technique that I've got to like half hold the button, but then make sure you lift it back up at the end.
The whole bathroom needs to be replaced, which has meant that none of it's been replaced. The bath is falling through the floor. The toilet has been broken for 15 years.
Well, that's
and
good,
because
though. I mean, you're getting a deeper bathtub, right? Everyone wants a deep bathtub. This one's 6 feet under the floorboards.
You know what you would really like? Do you remember that show where they used to improvise and then they would tilt the stage? The improvisers would like slide off. Like that's what my bath is like.
Right.
Because I used to be able to balance my toothbrush. It's an electronic toothbrush, so it has like a heavy base. I used to like be able to balance it like, you know, toothbrush up on the base on the side of the bath. And now that is impossible. It is on so much of an angle that it just immediately topples over. So whole bathroom needs to be replaced. And so I've been hanging on to these. It's no point replacing the toilet or the bath or whatever because the whole thing needs to be replaced. So instead, what you do is much like our approach to COVID, you learn to live with it. And I have been – so for people who – like the main problem is that the toilet seats – are loose and cannot be refastened. So anytime you would sit down on the toilet, if you move slightly, the whole thing just like slides from side to side. And like, so every day I know I live in a world where one day my testicles are going to get caught in that and rip off. Like,
I get you now. This is the microdosing thrills, right?
Every day. Because if you just make one wrong move sitting down on that toilet, like it's all over. And it's in the bathroom. It's already a slippery situation, right?
I believe that was a deleted scene in the original Point Break when Bodhi and his team of daredevils took Johnny Utah on a whirlwind adventure. The last thing they said is now try and take a shit on this toilet where the seat moves around. Your balls may get caught.
People haven't seen the deleted scene, but it's actually Peter Phelps coming out of the bathroom and he says, I wouldn't sit on that toilet. It's death on a stick in there. So death on a dick is what I face on a daily basis. So it is just my every time I sit on that toilet, I'm always like, today could be the day.
Death on a dick. I missed that Inspector Poirot mystery. Anyway.
So juice wrapped up.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So then the other meanings is if you're in the States, again, a 22-ounce beer, usually in a glass bottle, is also known as a juice. So you could say, I'm going to chug a juice tonight. Oh, you'd want to make sure everyone was clear on the distinction between the two meanings of juice before you announce to your friends, I'm going to go chug on a juice.
Too close.
Yeah. I'm just going to lie back on my couch and open my mouth and just let that juice slide right down my gob. You're still talking about the beer, right? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, the beer.
I've found out some information about Manfred Mann.
Okay.
So Manfred Mann were an English rock band formed in London and active between 1962 and 1969. Nice. Now, the group were named after not their lead singer, as I speculated, but their keyboardist, Manfred Mann.
It is a good name.
Who later led the successful 1970s group Manfred Mann's Earth Band. So the band had two different lead vocalists, Paul Jones and Mike D'Abo. So let me see. They're regular in the UK charts with three of their most successful singles were Mighty Quinn, never heard of it. Pretty Flamingo, you would have heard of that song.
Really?
Yeah, very sort of like British set, like
sing it.
No, I don't think that would help. Do-a-diddy, you would know.
Diddy-dum, diddy-dum. Is that them? Do-a-diddy-diddy-dum.
There she was just walking down the street
they
singing
sound so
Do-a-diddy.
American for an English band.
Yeah, okay.
So I found the meaning of juice and what it refers to in Blinded by the Light. A juice is also a
Sorry.
What?
Yeah,
it's a 1932 Ford
first.
coupe, usually made into a hot rod. Did you see that wicked souped-up Ford with the suicide doors? That was a wicked
okay,
juice.
yes, right.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
All right. Well, I found some more information about Manfred Mann. He started in a band, and this is before when this was a popular phrase, so this is why I just find this so amusing, with a guy called Mike Hug, and they were called the Man Hug Blues Brothers.
That is amazing. Really?
Yep.
Wow. Two references there that would come into play much later in the 80s and then around the mid-2000s. They were ahead of their time.
1962. They've called themselves the Man Hug Blues Brothers.
Wow, that's amazing. It's like, in 1956, there was a folk band called Pearl Jam Nirvana. Yep, they just think that Pearl Jam's the best thing. It's just like heaven.
Okay, so they changed their name from the Man Hug Blues Brothers, and now they change it to Manfred Mann and the what? So I'm going to get you to have a little guess. So this isn't one of the ones we've mentioned so far. This is another name on the way. So they're called Manfred Mann and the...
Okay, is it, I'm going to need a clue. So is it a collective?
Well, the obvious place I would go to is, if you asked me this question, I'd be like Manfred Mann and the Men.
Oh, yeah.
Right? That would be my guess. That gives you a clue of the direction, but it's gone weirder than that.
Manfred Mann and the Women?
Weirder than
Manfred Mann and What is a Woman? It was like the first anti-trans band.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Manfred Mann and the Mermaids?
You're never going to get it, by the way. I just wanted to hear some guess. Manfred Mann and the Manfreds.
Fuck, I tell you what. Could write a hit song, could not name a band.
Could not name a band. Manfred Mann and the Manfreds.
This makes me feel a lot better about naming our podcast 30-odd Foot Apart.
Right?
Like, I feel like we did a pretty good job. We didn't name it Will Anderson and Charlie Clausen and the Charlie Andersons.
Oh, my God. Okay, so Do-a-Diddy is actually a cover band. A cover song,
okay,
sorry.
So that's why it sounds so American.
Yes, okay. So with the success of Do-a-Diddy, they covered Sha-La-La by the Shirelles, which was a big hit for them. When did they? Oh, okay, beautiful. Their first album was called, it had Manfred Mann in the title.
Okay.
Oh, how can I even give you a clue for this? If the A-Team got rid of like B.A. Baracus and Hannibal and Mad Dog Murdoch.
So there's a face there. Yeah.
Good. Good. And just
Good
there was
clues.
5 of that character instead.
Manfred Mann and the 5 Faces?
The 5 Faces of Manfred Mann.
Okay. I was going to say the 5 Faces of Death. It was a prog rock snuff movie crossover.
All right. Now, hang on. I need to so a lot of their songs, so it turns out they did a lot of covers. So they were a band that like ended up basically specialized in covers. Okay. Doesn't really have a lot about Blinded by the Light though, I will say.
But anytime someone, it's a bit like when we had that listener write in and say every time they hear Stop, they shout out, collaborate and listen. If anyone ever talks about being blinded by the light, you just cannot help but roll into the next lyric of that song.
The absolutely incorrect lyric that we wrapped up like a juice.
Yeah, wrapped up like a juice. Because I imagine a piece of poo and some tissue paper, clearly. Got it wrong. I teased before about a little an anecdote I wanted to bring to the table. And this is always good because I know you love being the arbitrator of my life and offering advice. And this is something that I feel like maybe a lot of listeners will have opinions on because I've surveyed a few people and got some different answers. So we had some friends stay over the weekend, big family, so we had a lot of sheets to wash the next day. So rather than do it in our laundry, I was like, I'll just go into town to the communal laundromat, the public laundromat, and get all the sheets done in one big hit. So I had this, when you sort of schedule your day and it's like, oh, perfect. I can drop the sheets off. They can do a wash. I'll go up to the post office. That'll take 20 minutes. I'll come back. They'll be done. Then I can chuck them in the dryer. That's 15 minutes. I can go up and do it. And so you've got your day all scheduled and it sort of all relies on, no more than sort of like a 5-minute, 10-minute delay on any one thing, right? So I get the sheets into the wash, all good. And I go off and I do my 20-minute errands while they wash. And then I come back and all the dryers are taken. They're all moving. They're all spinning, except for one. It's just stopped. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, well, I really had plans, so I'll give it 10 minutes. I'll go get a coffee or something like that. I'll give it 10 minutes. So I went off, 10 minutes came back. The other 3 dryers are still going. That one stationary one, still hasn't moved, but no one's come back to collect their laundry either. And I'm on a bit of a schedule now. I'm like, I got to go drop a deuce. I'm like, that was coming. Not straight. It wasn't the most important thing at this stage. So I sort of waited for like 10, maybe another 2 or 3 minutes there, and still no one turned up. And so I was like, okay, don't feel great about this, but I'm just going to get one of the communal baskets and I'm going to empty this person's laundry. I try not to look at anything. I'm just going to pull it out. Won't fold it either. I just thought, well, I'll just drag it out and put it in one of the bins, one of the laundry bins, and then I'll put my stuff in. So I did that and got in the car, went and did my dirty business, and then went off to the gym for like an hour. And then when I came back, that laundry was still in the basket. So someone had not come back within an hour to collect that laundry. My sheets were done. And so I grabbed them, put them in my basket and left. Got about almost all the way home when I realized, oh my God, I've actually taken the wrong basket. I've taken one of the laundry's communal baskets and left my one there. So I'll just go back and swap them over. And when I went back, there was a mum in there with a young child who was going through the laundry that I put in the basket.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to her, oh, hey, sorry about that. Like I waited around, but you didn't come back and I just need to get these sheets dry. I hope that's okay. It's fair to say my reception was very frosty. She was not pleased, like kind of just cold shouldered me as if I had done something really egregious. And so I was like, oh, fuck. I don't know. Like I can't remember the last time I used a communal laundry in that way. There's no rules written on the wall about like time limit and stuff, but I would have thought, considering there are timers on the washing machines and the laundry, when you put your load in, what your window is, and it's like a parking spot. You can't just like stay there for longer than the allotted period, right? So I come home and I say to Jem, I tell her the story, and she's like, absolutely. Like that woman, as soon as the dryer's done, like you just have to pull it out. What's your take on this situation? What would you have done knowing that you had a schedule to keep?
What's my take, or what would I have done? They're two separate questions.
Okay, well, let's what would you...
My take is this, very simply. There's a window. of time that's acceptable. Like I think of 15, 20 minutes, the appropriate just you've popped to get your coffee. It took a little longer. They've gone to do the groceries. It took a little bit longer. You don't sit there and the minute it's done, you just rip their stuff out and put it in a basket. I think it's nice for you to give someone some wiggle room. But this has been
how long?
This has been 10 or 15 minutes maximum would be my I think that's perfectly appropriate, right? So, and technically, probably you don't need to give any. If the person's not there, this is a communal space. You've all entered into this agreement. We all enter into it because if you're not there, anyone can walk in at any stage and take your laundry. If you're down getting a coffee or if you're at the gym or whatever, you've entered into this agreement that anyone with a $2 big, one of those bags you get at the $2 shop, you could come in with one of those, pretend it's your laundry, walk out with everybody's clothes.
Marla Singer in Fight Club, that scene in Fight Club where she just walks in the laundry and steals a bunch of clothes.
It's literally one of those scenarios that we know what we're entering into. It's a social contract. It relies on us each sort of being there for each other in a way. So the fact that she was away for so long and you took her stuff out, no, you were fine. She was the one who was being inappropriate because she was holding up something she did not need for someone who needed it. She was stealing from the business because you couldn't spend your money there. So she was stealing from the business during that time.
That's right.
And she was also
I should have yelled that as I was taking the basket.
Well, if she doesn't want to support local small businesses, the one that she relies on. And she relies clearly for it to be there, but she can't take advantage of that. They only have a certain amount of machines and they need those machines to be working as often as possible to be able to pay for the upkeep of those machines and keep those machines clean and secure and security cameras and these sort of things. So no, she's clearly stealing from the business during that time. What I would say is, we generally have a politeness that if you don't need the machine, you don't move people's stuff, right? It's not like the minute it's out, take it out. You put it in a basket. I think that is totally appropriate. There's nothing wrong with any of your behavior. Here's what I would have done that you did not do. When I came back and my stuff was done and her stuff was they weren't back yet, I just would have put it back in the machine.
Smart. Didn't think of that.
That's what I would have done. And then none of this arises, right? You got away with it. Yeah. It was the perfect crime.
I know.
She would have been none of the wiser to the fact that you had actually got your sheets dried during that time.
The anxiety, because I felt like when I got my sheets, I felt like I got away with the perfect crime because she's just going to come back and find her and she'd have no idea. There's no cameras in there. There's no one else. No one saw me, unsighted. But then when I got into my drive, I'm like, oh, God damn it, that's the wrong basket. I knew it was a risk to go back, but I just had to do it. Well,
but did you have her basket?
No,
you didn't have her basket.
No, that was just one of the communal baskets. No.
So again, you've volunteered the information that you put her stuff in the basket, which you did not need to do either.
No.
You could have absolutely in that moment said nothing. Firstly, you could have just said nothing and ignored the situation. She might have even suspected it was you, but she wouldn't have any information to be sure of that fact, right? If you if she said, "Hey, did you put my laundry in here?" If she actually asked you, you could have in that situation been honest, or you could have in that situation gone, "Oh, that's really funny. I was actually just in here before, and somebody had put my laundry in for me. That's actually why I've got the wrong basket. They put it in the wrong basket, and I just picked it up." So, I mean, again, I just think you could have what I would have done versus. You weren't wrong in what you did. I just think you could have avoided this situation
altogether.
Altogether.
I mean, there is a possibility because she gave me such a cold shoulder that she didn't speak English. I mean, she might have been German or something like that because she just seemed to not even acknowledge what I had said, which was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I just had to take that stuff out." But it got me thinking, and I
imagine what's actually going to happen is you're going to run into this woman in another situation and you're going to say, "Hey, were you the woman from the laundry that day?" And she'd be like, "No, that's my sister. She looks a lot like me. I've never been to this area before."
It got me thinking about what the etiquette is. So I went to Reddit, which is obviously, you get all your best opinions. And I found this is the most similar situation I could find to mine.
Okay, cool.
So this is someone who wrote, To those using shared laundry rooms, is it acceptable to remove someone's clothes if they've been sitting in the machine for hours? I used to just take out the clothes and set them up on top of the washer to dry if they've been sitting in there for over an hour. But recently, someone left a super angry note in the laundry room threatening anyone who touched their clothes. Am I completely out of line on this? Okay, so that didn't happen to me.
That's pretty good, no.
But that's pretty similar. Okay, so this is I've just collated some of my.
And by the way, this is communal laundry room at an apartment block, which I have been in that situation, and I think in that situation, it's absolutely appropriate that you're allowed to take it out. Like, it's a communal, it's for everybody. Again, the person who's left their clothes in there is the person taking advantage, not the person who's trying to get their clothes into there. If you stopped someone's cycle mid-cycle and took their clothes out and put yours in, sure, you've overstepped. But if the cycle's done, it's on the person who's left their clothes there.
Yeah. I mean, those fucking psychotic neighbors I had back when I lived in Sydney, the ones with the ones who,
yes,
were just monsters. We had a communal laundry upstairs, and what was it? That's right. We had a washing machine. They had a washing machine. But occasionally we'd have people come stay, and I'd forget to tell them which washing machine was which, and they would fucking flip, even if they didn't need it. Just the mere thought that someone had put clothes in their washing machine, I don't know, wear and tear or something like that. But I tell you what, we didn't have a dryer there. Me and the other apartment, we sprung for a dryer. And these motherfuckers used our dryer all the time. We couldn't use their dishwasher, but I would catch them using our fucking dryer all the time. I mean, that's a separate issue, I understand, but just you're talking about it. The anger is still. Your Honor. Well, Osher texted me because Osher lives not far from where our apartment used to be, and he texted me a photo showing that their business had closed down, and I was so fucking happy about it. Like, it was just few things, a few good things came out of COVID, but the fact that those motherfuckers lost their business, God. Like, I told Jem about it, and she's like, good. And I said, should we be a bit more sympathetic to a woman who clearly had mental issues and was struggling? And Jem was like, no, I fucking hate her. I hope she has a miserable death. And I'm like, okay, I guess.
It's easy to be in principle kind, but when you've had to live alongside that situation, it's like I'm happy to be anti-war and a pacifist, but I'm not going to, put myself in the shoes of a soldier and what their experience would be. You lived on the front lines.
Yeah. All right. So this is the first response. I thought this was just an interesting collection of responses because people speculate on what the time limit should be, what the actual etiquette in a laundry is. Okay. So the furry chef says, don't worry about it. You're in the clear. Our laundry machines all tell you exactly how long they'll be done. So I give a grace period of about 10 minutes before I remove someone else's clothes so I can use the machine, which is kind of what you speculated, right? You said 10 to 15 minutes. A ghosted account says an hour. Sounds like you don't give a shit about it. 15 minutes is the longest anyone should wait before moving your stuff for you. So, that's again in your ballpark. This person who chose to remain anonymous said, my God, if you touched my panties, I would be so pissed. Seriously.
Well, don't leave your panties in a public place. You can't, I don't want to victim blame here, but if you're leaving your panties unattended in public, you can't then say, that's like leaving a toddler in public and say, nobody touch my baby. You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense. It's it's your responsibility to have an eye on them at most times.
Well, it was funny when I was removing, I tried to be as sort of discreet and respectful as possible. So I kind of was turning my head. So it wasn't look like if anyone walked in, it didn't look like I was targeting underpants, that I was moving underpants first and ignoring towels and everything else. I was just randomly scooping stuff into this basket without favor or fortune.
But also, come on, it's clean underwear. The association with underwear is surely either when it's on the person, it's sexual when it's on the person, or I can understand, it's not my thing, but I know that there is a market for pre-worn or the idea that it's been on a person is what makes it sexy. But it's just come out of a washing machine. Is underwear sexy at Target? Should they have a sealed section at Target for people to walk through and buy underwear? It's not inherently sexy anyway, is it? Like it's just
Some
been washed.
underwear I think is aesthetically sexy, that even without seeing it on a body. I mean, that's not my fetish either, but I can appreciate the aesthetics of sexy underwear and what it kind of evokes.
Yeah, but I mean,
but I imagine this was, I did not see anything lace or satiny. It was very much your Monday to Friday undies.
Well, I'm just saying, you shouldn't be leaving anything in a public place that you're not willing for somebody to go through, right? Like that's what I would say.
Some weirdo. Another anonymous said, "No, fuck them. They shouldn't. They shouldn't be waited on." Which I think is like, I mean, you get some real insights into like how people view the world. Like, the world's full of pussies, dicks, and assholes. That's that response. Hello, McFly says, this is my 3 rules in college. If the laundry left in the dryer is still warm, then I will take them out and fold them. If the laundry left in there is no longer warm, then I'll take them out and pile them somewhere else because they're going to be wrinkly anyway. If the laundry is left in a washing machine, I'll put it in a dryer, but select a delicate setting. What do you think about that? That seems like a lot of work. I mean, folding the clothes, because that was a consideration of mine because it was still warm. And I know with Jem, like when we dry and clothes here, she's always like, hey, let's just fold these as soon as they come into the dryer. We'll get rid of, any creases or whatever. Stop getting all crunched up. But is that my job?
I think that's more intrusive, personally.
Yeah.
Like I would much prefer. Now I'm putting myself in. It would be weird
to walk in and see a complete stranger folding up your Van Halen t-shirt.
Yeah, I'm not into it.
Yeah.
Like, no. I think it's enough that you've taken it out. As long as you haven't like chucked it in a corner or somewhere it gets dirty again or like, and you'd put it in a basket. Yeah. So
haphazardly though, I must admit.
Yes, but again, that's not on you. And I actually think
it's gone for an hour.
I think it's worse.
It's going to get
I came back and it was folded by you. That means you've actually taken some time. Like you've had, like
that's the equivalent of kissing on the lips.
Yeah, it's too much, right?
Like it's a bit too intimate.
Like it's okay for you to just take a whole.
What if you walked in and I was kissing your laundry?
So, like, do you know what I mean? Though it does feel like,
it does.
If you just take an armful of laundry. Like there might be a towel in there. You don't even know what else is in there, right? Like you just jam it all together. You put it in the basket. You haven't looked at the details. Whereas if you folded it, then you've really gone through. And we're human beings. There's absolutely no way you haven't judged something along the way, right?
Okay. Marvelously says 1 hour is totally unacceptable. And it's perfectly within traditional laundromat guidelines to move it out.
Oh, yeah.
You could go the passive-aggressive note threatening to the inconsiderate, selfish asshole who left the clothes in a shed appliance for an hour, but I'd just ignore it and keep on keeping on. I don't think Marvelously would just ignore it, judging by how well thought out that was. What do you think about a passive-aggressive note? Are you a passive-aggressive note writer?
Nah.
Never written one? Parking, someone's parked over your driveway or anything like that?
No, I don't think I ever have. And look, there may be one exception to that over my entire lifetime that I can't immediately call to mind. But the reason I say I never think I have is I know that in those situations where that thing my thing is always like, this could be done now. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I can move on from this. I don't need to engage unless they engage. Yeah. I don't want to the passive-aggressive note, that just to me is an invitation to trouble because then there's going to be a response and then it's a thing. Like, I always think that those things are never worth the trouble. And I've been the receiver of some
I love getting
notes.
One. I love getting one under my windscreen. Hey, dickhead, you parked in a non-stop or whatever it is. I love getting one because I'm like, I love the idea for the exact reason you described that someone I'm in their head, man, like living rent free. That they've had to write a note, but I'm sure I've scribbled. I'm a guy who yells at kids for stealing my bin, so chances are I've definitely left a passive aggressive note. In fact, I did for them. I remember when I stole the neighbor's dog, except that was text messages.
Yeah,
so I can't say that I wouldn't do that. Paps Blue Reddit says, this literally happened to my friend today. After putting someone else's clothes on top of the dryer and drying his laundry, that's in brackets SIC, he came back to the laundry room to find that someone had put his clothes in the sink and turned it on. So ridiculous.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's different.
I mean, that's next level kind of pettiness as well. I also think too that there is I'm assuming these are college students, right? And so you don't have much to worry about as like a student, apart from like studies and girls or boys or whatever you're into. That's all it really is. So these little dramas tend to be like much more heightened. Like the sense of injustice about someone moving your laundry might be a bit more heightened, especially if you're coming down off pills.
Yeah, exactly. But also why I think that the folding thing works okay in a college dorm setting. Like, I think there would be an element of like, you've just moved out of home. Your mum probably used to do it. If you popped down the laundry and you found that your clothes were all folded, you'd be like, awesome. Apparently there's a magic laundry here.
All right, this last one, I'm going to do a bit of a voice. Okay, and you'll understand why from the very first.
European?
line.
General
No.
European voice?
No, it's more, think more like your grizzled vet, you know, someone who's seen some shit, okay? So I was deployed in Iraq a few years ago, and doing laundry was a real pain in the ass sometimes. There was one laundry room in our compound with probably 30 to 40 washers and dryers, but even then it was hard to find an empty dryer sometime. After going through them all, the ones that weren't on all had clothes in them. I picked one at random and piled the clothes on top. They were completely dry and left for about an hour or so. When I get back, I opened the dryer, and to my absolute shock, my clothes were gone. Inside was a piece of paper, folded in half, and typed on it. It said, "Next time, asshole, fold the laundry." It doesn't end there. Just like this poor guy serving his country. He just wants to fucking dry his clothes. They're completely dry. He puts them on top of another machine. There's a hand, like a type note, not a handwritten note. Like someone has printed this off. I was utterly confused at first, and then infuriated that my clothes were missing. After checking all of the machines, my stuff was nowhere to be found. I left pissed for a little bit and went back after a while to find my clothes in one of the washers. Turns out they were big enough dicks to put my clothes in the washer and start it again. I originally didn't check the ones that were currently running and wasted my time, all because I didn't fold their shit. I still don't understand how someone could get so mad from a stranger not folding their clothes that they would hide my clothes and leave an angry note that they typed out and printed. God damn it.
Yeah, I can't believe that somebody in the middle of a war would have some over the top, weirdly stressed response to some situation.
That is crazy though. Like the level of pettiness you have to do that. I mean, I kind of admire it in a little way, but that's what I mean about the small victories, right? Maybe in the heat of a war zone, it's like, I just need something low stakes to focus on. I need a war I can win.
Yeah, I think that you're right. Like it's a power thing, right? It's a little bit of control, and you feel like, you know, I can imagine you overreact more as well, right? You constantly feel like you're under attack. So when you're constantly under attack, that's how you're trained to like see if anything is an attack. You perceive probably everything as an attack.
Does it remind you a little bit? I don't know what your high school was like, but going to an all boys high school, there is a level of, I don't know what it is, but like guys like to be very practical and play by the rules, and there's like set way of doing things. And if you deviate outside of that, like you're just expected to know the rules. And if you don't know the rules, you're an asshole.
What sort of rules? What do you mean?
Just like, it kind of relates to, I don't know. I for some reason I feel like it's like, you know, a sport kind of thing. Like there's team rules, there's team things you have to follow. And if you don't automatically know the protocol for something, like the onus is on you rather than people telling you what the rules are. Like when we read that earlier post about, you know, general laundromat guidelines, I wouldn't know what the fucking general guidelines are. But there's some people who are like, it's fucking obvious, dude. the guidelines for laundry are this. Like this person who feels so passionate about the fact that you do not touch another man's laundry. 3 things you don't touch, Will.
Yeah, a man's wallet,
man's wife, wallet, and laundry.
His laundry.
Do you know what I mean? Like to feel that you've got to have, and that was my experience as a teenager, was like a lot of these guys and my mates that I hang out with, they were very unforgiving of kind of weakness or a lack of, certainty or confidence or whatever. And so if you did something wrong, you'd be humiliated for it. How the fuck could you not know how to do that? Or, you don't know how to do
but that's just like in-group and out-group behavior, isn't it? It's like there's just these rules of the people who know the rules, like it gives us some sort of in-group thing. So we punish people who don't know the rules or don't obey the rules. But it's that level of, I think, this is, I think they do a little bit in school now, teach, life skills as part of the education program. But you're absolutely right. There should be a course, and it would be one of the more interesting courses to go to when you're a kid, which is just this life stuff. Like, what are the rules of the laundromat? Like, at some stage, you're probably going to live somewhere that has a communal laundromat. What is the etiquette? Like, at some stage, you're going to catch a plane and you're going to line up and, like, how do you actually do all this in a way that, like, because it does make you feel like an idiot when you don't know what those 100%. Rules of society are. And often your perspective has so much about, obviously, the way you were raised. Like, this is the thing they go, well, your parents tell you. But we were having a conversation in a work thing the other day about mattresses, and one of the companies offers, you can sleep on it for so long and return it. And they were talking about what they do with those mattresses. And a lot of people in the office were like, oh, gross. I'd never sleep on a mattress that, someone else has slept on. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, have you never stayed in a hotel room?
Yeah.
Like, I sleep in, like, most of the beds I sleep in for 100 days of the year have been slept in by hundreds of strangers. But I normalize that because that's my life experience. Whereas if that's not your life experience, you have a completely different perspective on it.
But do you accuse your coworkers being fucking idiots because they don't like the thing that you're very used to and experienced with?
I mean,
because that's how people are on the road, right? Like that's what triggers road rage. It's like, how did that fucking idiot not know where they're going? Why did that fucking idiot pull into that lane without indicating? Like we all suddenly become experts, and anyone who violates that is a moron. And I think you can sort of extend that to other things. And I was at the airport.
Well, I think we think we're experts at driving when none of us are.
Yeah, of course we're
all
not.
Bad at it. Like everyone's bad at driving. Like I love when someone says, I'm a good driver. You're not, because even good drivers aren't that good drivers, because driving is really hard and we're never driving in perfect conditions, and there's other people who are various levels of drivers on the road at the same time. No one is a good driver all the time, and yet we set society's level of expectation at, like, I reckon when we pass our drivers test, they should say, now you're like a 6 out of 10.
Yeah.
And you're probably only ever going to be a 7.5, and we've decided that's okay. But don't get in your head you're an 8 out of 10 driver. Like, judge,
Oh, yeah, 100%. And I'm the worst at that. Like I'm often like telling Gemma that I'm the best driver in the world. And then last week we're driving home from dinner and I said, can I just put the footy on my phone? And she's like, but you don't watch it. You're going to be driving. I said, no, I'm just going to listen to it while I'm driving. And she was like, okay. And she put it on, and sure enough, like I said like that. I look up, I'm like, oh, okay, we're heading into a truck. All right. And she's like, grabbed the phone, just like threw it in the back seat. You are not putting the footy on while you're driving. It's like, yeah, it's right. Good call. Good call. Is that it? That's our rant. All right, that's the show for this week.
I assume we'd have letters or something.
No, we do.
We normally do mail.
Ton of letters. Well, we've still got people. We've got mics rolling in left, right, and centre. We'll whip through these. This is from Mike Bowker, who says, I'm a Mike. I'm not a doctor or a podcast producer, but I'm definitely a Mike. That counts. We've got this from Michael Hughes, who says, I'm a Mike. I'm a Mike, and I'll put my hand up if you need anyone experimented on with LSD. I mean, is that something that we floated? We must have floated that. Yeah, too random a volunteering thing. This Michael is Michael Hill. He's a juror, right? Michael Hill Jurors. Want to sponsor the show? I'm Mike. I'm a long-time listener, Mike Hill, and I'm registering my mic. Thanks, Mike. Can we have a free, cheap gold necklace? This is from Michael Weberus. I'm a Mike. I never thought my first correspondence would be just about my name, but I'm one of the many Mikes, and I cannot wait for my offer of employment. And please do more HAMOFOPs. Love from Mike. We could have some more homophobs coming, can't we? At some point, we've got a lot of shit going on at the moment.
We've got a lot going on. I'm currently doing my cricket podcast, which is taking all my FOFOP time.
Which is essentially
TOFOP with friend time.
That's essentially what TOFOP is, though, right? A TOFOP with friends. It's like little projects and stuff like that. So people aren't missing out.
No, at some stage though, yes, Hamo will be back, of course.
This is from Michael Surplice, who says, I'm a Mike. Hey, team, I'm a Mike or a Michael, Mick and Nikki, depending on which group of friends I'm with.
Okay.
Oh, wow, he's a bit of a, what did you call that? Not like Omni Mike. I think Roadcaster make those Omni Mics.
The Omni Mics, yeah.
Since I'm here, well done consolidating the shows. Thank you, Mike. I'm glad someone appreciates it. I know the overlords at Listener. Okay. I mean, listener, if you are listening, I'm just reading the letter. I'm not saying that you're our overlords. I know the overlords at Listener are against it, but I would love some EPs with you guys in the same room. You're great via Zoom, but I miss the energy of the older EPs. Anyway, add me to your bench, Mike. Look, we would love to do that as well. Yes. I think it would have to be an instance in which we're both in Melbourne or Sydney where the Listener studios are. Right? Because have you been doing some in-studio stuff, or has it still been down the line?
I've been mostly doing it down the line still. But yes, you can do it in studio, and they're building new studios in Sydney and the Melbourne ones are done. So
yeah, there's an opportunity at some point.
We'd love to do it in the same room. And I agree. Like, I do think there is an extra energy from being in the room in any like podcast situation. But most of the time, Charlie and I are just not in the same place.
Yeah. Mentally or physically.
So without technology, there would be no podcast anymore, unfortunately. But obviously, we are hoping to at least be doing some things in the same room at some stage soon later in the year.
This is from Petria, and this is shocking. She says, I heard that Will is no longer on the socials. Is that true?
Look, I don't like to talk about it, Charlie, but that is true. I am actually off social media now.
Oh, you should make that the basis of your whole personality. So, Patria says, through TOFOP, I wanted to say thank you to Will for recommending Mrs. Davis. I've just finished Ep 3 and having my mind blown. It's so good. I'm pretty sure one of you said you'd seen Severance, but it's also good to see another show that is original that keeps you guessing, and I love its twists and turns. I'm also looking forward to The Bear coming out series 2. It's another brilliant show. Anyway, I'm not sure if
Did you watch the final episode? Did you watch The Bear, by the way?
No, I haven't seen either of The Bears.
All right.
Why?
No, well, at some stage in the future, there's a thing that really bothered me about the final episode of The Bear that doesn't seem to have bothered anybody else who has watched that series. So at some stage when you watch it, we'll have a chat about it. But it's not that big a deal. It's just one of those things where, you know, when you watch something and you have like a really strong, like, yeah, but I think this was like against everything that this show's been about for the entire series, and nobody else seems to think it's a problem. And you're like,
that's my equivalent of Dirty Dancing, the final song being "Time of Your Life," which is clearly not from the '60s. It's like there's not, but everyone seems to be okay with it. I'm like, I'm the only guy who's like, that makes no sense, and it takes me out of the movie. But everyone's like, fuck up, you're an idiot. I'm like, all right, I guess so. Gonna leave an angry note in my dryer. You know what I did watch on the weekend, which was a lot of fun, was the WHAM documentary on Netflix. And if anything, like, it sent me on a 5-esque rabbit hole down the career of George Michael. Like, goddamn, what a talented individual that was. And when you watch this documentary, because my sister was a massive WHAM fan, and I do remember the phenomenon of WHAM, but my memory, they were just kind of like a British pop band that had done okay in the UK, but they were huge. Like, I didn't realize they broke the States so heavily and, you know, were like this global sensation. Do you remember WHAM?
Yeah. So I'm a little bit older than you, enough older than you that
the influence was.
This was absolutely 100% in my hitting zone. So there was actually Joy FM, which is the LGBTQIA station. That's, you know what? Anyway, Joy.
Queer station.
the queer station Joy FM did their own documentary about George Michael and Wham around this documentary. You know, like talking to people about it.
Can I get the podcast? That'd be a podcast?
Well, that's what I was going to say. I assume it's available somewhere, but I was interviewed for that because this year in my show, I have a big routine about George Michael in my stand-up show this year. Yeah.
Oh, maybe I should do your show. Because I've really just loved revisiting all this, like, because I had sort of forgotten, like I was trying to explain to Jem when we were watching it that like Wham and George Michael was such a big part of my childhood because my sister was such a huge fan. And then I remember sort of Listen Without Prejudice was one of my favorite CDs, like, you know, when I was a teenager and stuff, but it wasn't rock and roll. So I hid it from a lot of my friends, even though I thought it was a great album. And then to kind of like just read about all the shit that he went through. Like I had no idea that it took him till 1998 to come out. And the way he came out was the most humiliating way possible with that incident in the public toilets.
So for people who have seen my show, they will know this, and I won't give away the bit, but like that's the story I tell. So I tell the story about the song Outside.
Well, I perfectly set it up with that. Didn't I?
So I tell the story of the song Outside because like the story of that song, because that was his first big song after because he was publicly outed by the LAPD when they had trapped him. And so the whole point of the routine is we all know the worst part of that story and none of us know the best parts of the story. And I went down a George Michael rabbit hole during the COVID time. I find him a very comforting artist, and so I just have these tentpole moments that I really remember him being in and out of my life. So slap bang in the middle of me sort of like really getting into Countdown and like, you know, music was Wham. You know, so Wake Me Up Before You Go, Careless Whisper. I just remember every week after week, Careless Whisper was like the number one song on the charts, and it would be again, and it would be again. And like there was, you know, all this speculation around George Michael not wanting to be photographed from different sides. And all this blah, blah, blah. I know all this shit. Like, I mean, I remember when Careless Whisper premiered on Hey Hey It's Saturday. Yeah.
And Jock and Blackman talking over the top of the song. I'm like, shut the fuck up. And that 60 Minutes interview with Mike Monroe. And they showed the B-roll footage of him complaining about like what side he wanted to be photographed from, which felt like such a stitch up.
And obviously at the very heart of all this was the fact that like, yeah, this guy was like the poster boy for, you know, like you said, teenage girls around the world. But like that wasn't really, you know, the life that he wanted to be, but was in this industry where that was where the money was. Like that's what he was forced to be. He was forced to hide who he actually was. Like it was 25 years ago when he was, you know, busted in that toilet. And in some ways, it's amazing how much has changed in those 25 years. That's the positive side of the story, because he was like that, you know, that was news all around the world, and he was a joke all around the world. Like it was something that we all laughed at. When you look back on it, you just think he was one of the most creative artists of all time. And he had to go through all that publicly for what? For nothing. Anyway, the story of it's actually very positive, and once he was out and who he became, I think is absolutely glorious. But I'm like you, I followed that whole thing, like Wham into his solo stuff. I love the fact that he always seemed to be wrestling with, you know, like being a big star versus who he really wanted to be. Like his lyrics would always be about trying to break free of systems or being like caught for whatever reason. That I really liked that a lot. And then Listen Without Prejudice came out, and I remember I was going away end of year 11 on Lions Youth of the Year. I was the Victorians Lions Youth of the Year, and all the state winners were doing like a little nerd tour around Australia to see Australia and speak at Lions clubs. And my girlfriend at the time, Beth English, wrote me a little note for each day. Like it was one of those things of when I was
away. Don't take my clothes out of the laundry, you fucker.
You don't fuck anyone, right? You're dirty. But, what? What are you saying? No, little like quotes and like little kind of, so it was meant to be every day I was away I could open one of these things, and so many of them were George Michael lyrics. So you know that thing of like where your life tends to cement like your love for an artist, because not only do you like their work, but you associate it with these times in your life. And then during the pandemic, like just was like really like, I'm just going to learn everything I can about George Michael. I remember when he died and we were at our friend Lou's place, and
I remember
and
that
like,
too,
you know,
just after Christmas.
Yeah, just after Christmas, and everyone playing the music and sort of sharing memories. And so I ended up watching, like, there's a big live at London concert that's available on YouTube, and I watched all that. And just to see the joy he had, like, I mean, there's a moment in the concert, you know, where he's dressed as the sexy policeman singing outside, you know, and it's just glorious. Like, he was amazing. What a incredible, because he would have been too one of those artists that just continued to make great music forever. Like, you could tell that about the way his career progressed. He would have, you know, like, because he was always a bit loungy and jazzy, or could be at least, you know, as part of what his work is. So as an older artist, I would have loved to see what he did.
Well, people talk about like the evolution of the Beatles in that 7-year period. Like, they went from being this pop, you know, boy band to being, you know, the greatest band of all time, but it was in such an accelerated period. And I didn't realize, for some reason, I thought Wham was around for longer. It was only 4 years, 82 to 86. And then he quickly went from Wham to Faith, and then from Faith to Listen Without Prejudice. And if you follow the trajectory of those like 4 to 5 albums, that I think is equally as impressive in how his songwriting progressed. And have you seen the documentary?
I haven't seen it yet. No.
Oh, it's great. And the one thing I didn't realize was how early on in the process he was involved in the production. And there's this great anecdote where Careless Whisper was one of the first songs that they had written, Andrew and George had written, and they just kept it in their back pocket because they knew it was like this gold. And then when it finally came time to record it, they'd already had a bit of success with the first 2 albums. And so he'd flown out to New Orleans to work with this legendary producer who'd worked with like Aretha Franklin and James Brown, and recorded in the studio with all these legends. And, you know, they got the sax solo going. And then when he heard it, he was like, I don't like it. And he came back and plays it for Andrew. And they actually play it in the documentary. It's this kind of raw cut of the original recording of Careless Whisper. And it's just not magical. Like, it's fine, but he sounds tentative. It's overproduced. It feels like that American overproduced, just not what that song would be. And so Andrew and George talked about it, and George says, I reckon I could produce this myself. I think I know enough now. And Andrew's like, yeah, if I can go for it. And so every part of that song is George Michael. Like, he found the saxophone solo, went through like 6 saxophonists till they found the guy who could get that exact sound, the level of the production, everything about it is George. And when you think about that, then, like, you know, the Beatles had George Martin, but you've got this one songwriter who's coming up with the songs, writing them, but then also producing them. And there's just such a, like, I can't stop listening to Listen Without Prejudice now. Like, the last 3 days, it's all I've been listening to. And there's so much intricacy in the way, like, even the types of microphones he uses, like, everything is slightly distorted. He's obviously going as far away as he can from that really poppy, Faith, clean, shiny MTV sound to something that's just a bit, I don't know, more rough around, a bit more cynical. It feels a bit darker. It's just, it's amazing.
I mean, Freedom 90 is one of those like songs that just is so full of joy. But when you start to look at like some of his other songs, like Outside being one of them, but there was other songs that came along later in his career that just, the universality, like the fact that we as a world told him that he should be ashamed of who he was, and yet when he came out, like, or was forced to come out, but was then able to embrace being out, like, didn't lose a fan. Like, you know, I remember when I was DJing like weddings, like George Michael songs were the most guaranteed to have everyone from the grandma to the, you know, the teenage kids all dancing at the same time. It was genuinely universal music. It was the sort of music that your mum could like, but that your cool friends could like. And it's so rare that an artist is able to straddle that sort of mainstream but also critical line, right?
Well, it's funny. Well, because in Wham, that was almost the calculation, was we are going to be just like, we are the antithesis to punk. You know, the world needs brightness and fun and positivity. Like, that is what that band was about, and probably why it was so successful, because they were this splash of color in quite a dark sort of music scene. But then the way not even 10 years later, he flips on his head with this really ponderous, cynical album of like, kind of some dancey sort of like, R&B tunes, but a lot of, like you say, jazzy kind of stuff, but with really complex lyrics and just this sense of melancholy through the album. Like, it's just amazing. I can't wait to watch it again. And Andrew Ridgeley too comes across as like just so honest about his place in the history of the band, but like no less essential. Like he says, George was clearly the better songwriter, and we had to have that meeting where George said, if we're going to get to where we want to get to, then I need to take charge and be credited for all the songs. And Andrew, like, just make sure we look cool and that everyone's happy. And like, I don't want to sound like a minimizing, because he did write some of the music, but essentially you had this incredibly creative but tortured guy. And then you had this dude who was just fun and light and laughter, and he was like, Andrew was more what Wham was. George was the talent, but then Andrew was everything else. It's just goes to show, Will, in a partnership, you don't need to be the most talented or famous one to be an essential member of the group. And I don't know who I'm referring to when I make that comparison.
I mean, now that you're in Torquay, like running your surf shop with you married a Gemma, of course, was in Bananarama. A lot of people don't know that, but
I'll just finish this letter from Patria. She wants to ask you, Will, are you still an avid USA Survivor devotee like I am?
Yeah, I am, yes.
I'd like to hear your thoughts on the last season. Personally, I thought it was a great season of contestants. The format is not perfect, and as much I think Jeff has been great in the past, he makes too many comments and challenges and tribal councils to put the messages into the contestants' thoughts. But I loved it till the end. What did you think?
I liked it a lot, actually. I thought it was a pretty good season of Survivor. I am very interested in the narrative around Survivor because, like, Survivor is one of those shows, it's been on for 43 seasons or 44 seasons now, and never has, well, I mean, I'm sure there has been other examples of this. I'm just very aware of it because of my, following this show. But fuck me, if I was the producers of Survivor, I would be constantly mad at the fact that everyone in the world thinks they know how they can make Survivor better than the producers of Survivor. And I count myself in that, by the way. Like, there are times when I watch it going, I wouldn't have done that, or I'm like, but you know what? They've made 44 years of this shit.
They know what they're doing.
Like, let them, like, sometimes they do things in the show that annoy me, but you can understand why they're trying to do them. Like, they're trying to evolve the show. They're trying to make sure that it's still, a dynamic and new show. And sometimes I don't like those things either. But I think as a general vibe, like the fact that, I mean, there are few shows that 44 seasons into their evolution are as strong as Survivor, in my opinion.
It's 44 seasons.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Well, they do 2 a year.
2 a year, yeah. Okay. 2 a year most years, yeah.
Right. All right. Well, that is TOFOP for this week. If you have laundry, I would suggest you go get it out of the dryer before someone writes you an angry note. If I can send people to patreon.com /TOFOP, that's the best place to support the show. You can donate as little as $1 a month up to whatever you want. There's prizes. If you donate $20 or more, autographed poster of Will and I from one of our live shows. But there's also ad-free episodes, full videos of TOFOP, plus heaps and heaps of James Fosdyke original artwork that you can't get anywhere else. So patreon.com /TOFOP. I'd also encourage people to go to TOFOP TV on YouTube if you want some free TOFOP clips. We put up multiple clips every week. TOFOP TV on YouTube, and then TOFOP.com. That's our website. That's right. Shouldn't be that hard to remember. TOFOP.com, we can find all our great podcasts. And Will, you're doing Gruen again.
Yeah, Gruen's back on the telly at the moment, ABC iView, if you want to catch episodes of Gruen. My old special, Logical, is still there. I have a few dates left on my tour. But for Sydney friends, I am doing my improvised show, What You Talking About, Will, at the Sydney Comedy Store, 4 completely unique shows. So, come down to that. That's always fun. And it's particularly fun to do those improvised shows, I will say, when I'm not developing material for a new show, because my mind is not on what could this become. It's very much just on like having a muck around on the night and doing it for the sake of doing it. So I'm really looking forward to those shows. And of course, Philosophy is regularly back these days. So it's one of our podcasts that unfortunately you cannot find just in the TOFOP feed, but you have to go to a whole new feed called Philosophy. But the episodes are there if you want to check them out.
All right, that's the show for this week. I'm Charlie Clausen.
I'm Will Anderson.
listener.